Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video lesson, we're going to be creating a mini book of backgrounds, but with this particular piece here, I cut it bigger than what I needed because I want to be able to trim the edges because of the way I'm going to stencil it. All right, so the idea of this, and I'm not using this stencil, but is to give you that effect. Okay, white on white, and then use sort of DIY watercolors to tint everything. So what I'm going to be using for this is it's a piece of packaging, stiff. It's got to be stiff to hold the Crackle Paste. So we're going to use a DecoArt chalky gesso. It's this one here. Okay, I put it into a smaller container to prime everything. And then I'm going to use the DecoArt Traditions Crackle Paste through the stencil, this Andy Skinner Bubbles stencil. Okay, so you can see that I need to be able to handle it. So I'm going to do this. If it was really tiny, I'd be getting my hands inside the stencil. So I'm going to go right to the edge, right to the very edge, and then I'll be able to handle it here, be able to hold it. And I'll just cut it after. So the Crackle Paste applied with a palette knife. And then when everything is dry, we're going to come in, make our own watercolors. And I'm going to be using the DecoArt Traditions Watercolor Medium. Now, I've never used this with the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics. So that's going to be the experiment in this one, is will this work with the fluid acrylics? And with the paints, I'm using the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics Phthalo Blue, Henty Yellow Light, and then the DecoArt Traditions Permanent Alizarin Crimson. And using the Traditions for this, because the DecoArt Media, the fluid acrylic line, they don't have a alizarin crimson. And with that, I have to use quinacridone magenta instead, but I really wanted alizarin crimson. All right, so let's prime this puppy first. If you were doing this on raw wood, use the multi-purpose sealer first to seal the wood. And my brush should be clean enough. I'm challenging myself to stop using so many brushes because the cleaning time takes so long. So I'm just trying that. All right. Now with the gesso, you don't have to be... Actually, you know what? I haven't done this in a long time. And the gesso I should have been the fluid acrylics gesso because it holds the texture so much better. This gesso here, the chalky gesso, is a lot more fluid. So it somewhat levels out. But the DecoArt Media gesso, it holds the shapes really well. Actually, that's really good right there. So I'm going to now wait for that to dry. I'm not going to use a heat gun to dry this because it's so thick. Problem when you put the gesso on really thick, if you use a heat gun or a hair blower, it dries the top layer first and all the stuff underneath, even though it's, only this thick, the stuff underneath hasn't had time to dry. So with gesso, if at all possible, okay, let it dry. When you're using it for, as a substitute for titanium white and that's fine. You can use a heat gun. For this type of thing, because we're priming something, let it dry naturally if at all possible. I want to show you something before we go on to the stenciling part. Hopefully you can see this. See these little things here? Where's the other one? Right there. There we go. So the gesso was on so thick it started to crack, and what that was the temperature dropped overnight. I left my window open a little bit, and the top cooled off. The top dried. Then as the underneath part of the gesso started to dry, it contracted and it cracked. So I think that's fine. That's fine for this, but just keep in mind that when working gesso for a formal piece when you're priming, thin, even layers. All right, so I'm going to get my Bubbles stencil and I'm going to position it right about here so I'll be able to pick it up without getting my hands dirty. Now there's two ways to apply the Crackle Paste. If you don't mind, when you go like this, if you were to go over a large piece, you're going to have basically a line where the crackle paste, you know, a line, and you can go back over like this to cover it. But anytime you're working with crackle material, you have to work quickly. So because when it dries, that's when it starts to, the cracking takes place. So with this, I can, you know, apply it this way, or you put it on, then you can use something flat. This is a Deco Art tool. It's a texture tool, and then you can just do this and this and this. Just keep doing this until it applies it. This is faster, and it gives you a more even coat. And then you have this. So it's up to you. So I'm going to show you both. All right, so I can apply it this way, going like this. And with the crackle paste, the thicker it is, the heavier the cracks are going to be. So you can apply it like that all the way down, or you can take a tool like this and do that in one swipe. Completely up to you. This way, though, it's more even, and you don't have the lines. It's more consistent, and you know it's a, you know, you're level to the stencil. Or you can take your palette knife and just in some spots, maybe even the bigger bubbles, you can go bigger. Completely up to you. I like the big cracks, to be honest with you, but you don't have to, doesn't have to be completely even. So I've got some parts that are thinner. So let's try that experiment. All right. And then just take that off. Now you don't want to slide it. You want to make sure you lift. Okay. And then that's going to go on my drying rack. And I just realized I got, so, okay, no, that's all right. Grandkids, cover your ears. Oh, shoot. That's not what I wanted to say, but... Okay, well, we've got some texture going on now. All right. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So that's going to go on my drying rack. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to leave that there. So what do you do with all this stuff? You know what? If you have extra cards, I've always wanted to do this on one of these little guys. Oh, this isn't clear, but let's just see what happens. So I'm just going to put it on top. Let's do this. See, this is why I like to make bigger, because I can't there's nothing for me to grab onto. All right. We'll just see what happens. I just want to see what this looks like. All right. Yeah, and then just basically clean your stencil right away, because this stuff is pretty strong. And, you know, rubbing alcohol will usually get the dried stuff off. And then you just have to wait. And there is no magic time for this. Now, I do have some pieces, 2 pieces that are done. And just to show you. Okay, I'm not going to make that mistake twice. That's really throwing me for a loop, that flip. Oh. All right, so this is done on Terraskin, okay, which is paper made from stone. And the Terraskin, because it's thin, it really took a warp. And as it was drying, see all the cracks? Okay. And then this is on 140-pound watercolor paper, and look, the much smaller cracks. So if this is, I know why they look differently. I made them at the exact same time, using the exact same technique. On paper, when you put the crackle medium on top, you've got the gesso, the crackle medium, and the paper basically absorbs the moisture, whereas Terraskin, it doesn't absorb anything because it's not made from paper. Okay, this is made from ground up limestone and all that other stuff. You can go to terraskin.com or just Google Terraskin to find out more information about it. But basically the Crackle medium, and there's no gesso on this, the Crackle medium just sits on top. Okay, you don't need to gesso tear skin. The Crackle paste just sits on top. It doesn't get absorbed, so literally it just evaporates and you get the massive cracks. Whereas, you know, paper like this, you've got the paper will absorb the Crackle paste, and then if you put gesso on top, the gesso is porous, especially the chalky gesso, it's going to grab some of that moisture, and that's where the cracks are smaller. Applying it exactly the same way, exactly the same gesso, exactly the same technique, but two completely different finishes. Which one do you like better? A or B? Let me know in the comments below. All right, so I'm going to set this aside to dry. Now these ones here, that took 4 hours to dry. This was overnight because nothing was absorbed with that. So I'm thinking this now being done on cardboard, this should be done by this afternoon. Right now it's 5:30 in the morning. So this should be done by this afternoon, where I can finish filming the project, where we use acrylics, turn into watercolors. Okay, so this is dried and there's no peeling, there's no cracking. So just to show you what happens, I'm just going to grab this. So it's all coming off. So that leads me to believe that this particular packaging had some type of waxy film on it, which is why the gesso didn't stick. So that's something now to keep in mind, that when using food packaging like this, that maybe give it a light sand, or put maybe, you know, even take a paper bag just to scrape it off, or use maybe a dedicated scrubby sponge just to scrape off maybe some of the topping. But yeah, I can feel it now. It's a bit of a waxy film. And I have a whole bunch of this stuff, so it's going to take a little bit of prep to use that. So I'm going to put that aside now. What am I going to do with this? I could use this, I could put matte medium on this to hold this stuff down, you know, press it down and use that as texture. Maybe a stamp. Use that as a stamp. Who knows? I can use this stuff in artwork as well. So I've got this. Now I've already got pieces prepped, so we'll use those. And the little doggy one that we did, look at that. That's kind of cute. So we'll see what we can do with that. But what I want to do with this is I'm going to use a Decor Media Gesso, the white, and just take a little detour and just put this one on here. Now it's let me go on to, I want the torn side. I'm going to go right about here because I want to see what it's going to look like with that. No, not the gesso. What am I doing? Sorry. Wrong. Going to be use the Crackle Paste. Sorry. So this is the Traditions Crackle Paste. I don't have any of the Decor Media one. So I'm just going to put this on here. I'm going to put this on quite thickly. I'm not going to use the texture tool for this. Now, because there's really fine lines, I want to see how thick I can get for this. Get with this, I should say. Can you guys hear the saw? Joe is making me some pieces, little wood pieces for some projects. Okay, nice and thick. I didn't realize how loud that was. Sorry. I knew it was loud, but not that loud. Okay, let's see what we can get here. So I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to put it over here. Be very careful and lift straight up. Wow, that's thick. Holy moly. Actually, I'll put that there because I'm going to scrape it off. Look how thick that is. So what's going to be interesting with this experiment now is if that's going to self-level or if it will remain that thick. So what I'm going to do with this is, oh, what did get missed? Oh, the little fine details in here. Didn't quite pick that up. This seems to be a little bit thin to get into the details. So I wonder what would happen if I left this open for about an hour, just stirring it to thicken up a bit. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the media one is a little bit thicker than this. But once this is right, then I could just cut it. So I'm going to put this aside because the project is not about this. The project is about these ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape this off, put it back in the container, and then we'll mix up some of the Traditions paints and the media paints with the Traditions watercolor medium and do an experiment. Okay, so what I forgot to show you guys is I scraped the stencil off on the palette paper to clean it. And it's the Time Warp stencil for the Andy Skinner Mixed Media stencil line. And I'm going to let that dry and then see what happens. Initially I thought, oh, I could just peel it off. You can't. It's crackle and come off. What would have been a better idea is to create a skin with, let's say, the clear pouring top coat, and then scrape this on top of that, because that you can peel off. So, anyways. Alright, so the Decor Traditions watercolor medium is mixed 1-to-1 with acrylics. And I've done videos with this before. So it's a nice alternative if you don't want to go out and buy acrylics. Oh, sorry, buy watercolors if you don't use them very often. And I don't. That little fruit fly. I don't use them very often because there's no need to buy a dedicated product for that. I have, and I have yet to find a line that I like. So the experiment in this video will be how is this going to work with the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics. I've never used this medium with the fluid acrylics. So we'll see. So let's just mix those up. And the colors, so this here is the Decor Traditions Hansa Yellow Light, Phthalo Blue, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, and down here is Hansa Yellow Light, Phthalo Blue, and Quinacridone Magenta, because they don't have the Permanent Alizarin Crimson in the media line. Now, an experiment I did many years ago was taking these paints, not the fluid acrylics, but the Traditions, and mixing them with the watercolor medium in a tray, letting it dry, then seeing if I can reconstitute it with water. And it does. It's okay, unless the formula's changed since it first came out. It's honestly, it's best used. It's best used fresh. Even a regular watercolors, I'm not a fan of using the tube stuff because it's just, ugh, it's a mess. Pan watercolors are kind of nice. I do have some, was it Core? Don't even know how to pronounce it. QOR. They're nice. All right, so mix those up. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I have the windows open. We're now into, what do they call it? Indian summer? I don't even know if that's politically correct to even say that anymore, but whoa, is it ever going to be hot today? You know, going through a week of extreme cold, not winter cold, but for the fall. And now, oh Jesus, we're going to hit 30 degrees Celsius today. We're only supposed to be at 15 for normal temperatures. So, there we go. So you mix those up really well. Cleaning my palette knife as I go. And I'm going to get a round brush for this experiment. Some water. All right, so let's start. I'm going to have my water, and I've got my heat gun ready. Let me just clean up the paper towels here so I don't get my heat gun in the paper towel. Here we go. All right, so I've got these 3 pieces. So what I'm going to do is, these ones here are relatively the same thicknesses. Sorry, this is light thickness of the Crackle product. This is medium, and this is heavy. So you can see by the strength of the cracks. So what I'll do is, this one's just going to be experiment with just what it's going to look like, but I'll, practice with, some, different colors, and let's start with the blue first. So let's see what happens. So putting it on And then I'll drip and heat gun. It does not want to travel to that blank spot. Okay, I like the way this looks. All right. Now what happens if I try to wipe some back? Can I do that? Ooh, yeah. Oh, not all the way. Now this one here is, I think that, is this unprimed? Did I prime this with gesso first? I don't remember now. Some of it is coming up, but it has stained the paper. So I'm wondering now if I had actually primed this. Okay, so that's an interesting look. Okay, so what happens if I do the same thing now with the media line? Let's do it down here. Get a bit more water in there. Now, it's not going to be exactly like watercolors because it is an acrylic product, so there is some type of, you know, there's permanence in there. All right, let's get the heat gun. Okay, now let's see if we can wipe that one back. No, it seemed to, I have a funny feeling that I don't, you know what? I must have prepped that with gesso. I must have. So that's interesting. Usually with watercolors, you can wipe everything back. So let's try now on the Terra skin. Do the same thing now with the let's get a little bit more. Okay, a little bit of water. And the heat gun. Okay, what I like about this one with the thick cracks, it's actually getting inside. I gotta be careful with this. This is Terra skin. You gotta be careful when you use a heat gun, any heat product on that, because it's not paper. All right, let's see now. Can I wipe this back? A little bit more than you can with the paper, because don't forget, Terra skin is not paper. It's made from stone. So it does come up a little bit. That's interesting. Okay. So that was the traditions. Now let's try with the media. What I like is the look of the transparency on this. Let's see what it's like without adding the water. Let's see how intense that's going to get. Oh, I wanted to get inside. Oh, no, let's see what it's like there. I wanted it to go inside the holes there. Okay, it doesn't move a lot. So we do need the water. Let me see if I can just spray that a bit more. All right. That's quite interesting. Okay. So, to be honest with you, it actually goes... Oh, now I don't remember which one I did first. That's the media, that's the traditions. That's the Traditions, that's the media, I believe. I want to try to make sure I keep it the same. So honestly, the fluidity is about the same. I just had that a little bit more water to this one. So, you know, so far so good. Can I... See, I can reconstitute that. That's what I really like about this. I can reconstitute that. I love that. Ah, look at this. It wipes back off on the Crackle medium. So that comes, most of it comes off. All right, so that's a nice experiment there. Okay, let's move on. Let's get into some of my favorite pigment. This is my favorite. Permanent Alizarin Crimson. Now I'm going to spray the paper first. We'll do kill two birds with one stone. Okay, and no, this one is the quinacridone magenta, and I'm finding that I have to use a lot less water with the fluid acrylics. Oops, that was Joe coming upstairs. Amazon brought a package. And let's see. Did this stuff dry too quickly? Nope. Okay, so the Tradition seems to be a little bit more intense. So if I pick up a little bit more of the paint and less water. Okay, a bit too much paint. Let me get another baby wipe. And I'm not using paper towel because I don't want it to just like suck everything up. And let me just go over here. So you can get the intensity with putting it on and letting it dry naturally, or just blotting it up to get it a little bit more translucent. See? Okay, so that's something else. Now, let me get the fluid acrylics. Let's go back over here. Overlap a little bit of the blue, which will turn into the purple. Okay. Let's go back over here. Let's overlap a little bit of the blue here. Yeah, see the Traditions, it's really strong. Let's dry that and see what happens. I should be doing the majority of on this one. This is the Terra Skin. You got to be careful with that one. Now this one's absorbing a lot of water. Dry both sides. And the Terra Skin, if it gets too far out of whack with the heat, there's nothing you can do about it. So we end up having to speed up the drying time with maybe a hair blower on the lowest setting on cool. Oh, I love that. Wow. Okay. So even on the Terra Skin, it's actually taking the paint much differently, where the paper, it's actually absorbing the color. It seems to be stronger. The Terra Skin, the paint sits on top of the Terra Skin, and it doesn't absorb into it. Like, it does stain a little bit, but it's not as intense. So what I want to do now, this experiment, I'm going to do the splotches. And at this point right now, either brand, it doesn't matter. Either brand doesn't matter. Okay, so let's do that. And so the water is evaporating in this. It looks like you have to keep mixing this because it's getting a little granular. But once you just mix it, it's fine. It needs a lot more water. So just to show you, see? And that happens with the regular acrylics as well. Right. Okie dokie. I used parchment paper for my thing on the bottom, but you know what? Parchment paper is no stick. We went looking for those, remember the original unstick mat that I was using, which, I destroyed that a couple years ago. Can't find any of that stuff anymore, but I can find lots at Home Depot, but they're black, and for filming, it's really difficult. So now it's a matter of, okay, which one, I think they both have their merits. The ones with the heavy cracks, I think I would have liked to have done a little bit more of the deep blue inside the cracks. So you're having to add a little bit more of the product, or the less water, more medium, more paint, less water. And this one here, if I did the same, let's see how far this will go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it back and see if I can get the color inside, and then just wipe it off on the outside. So these little things, these little experiments are great for, especially for the book of backgrounds, because you can experiment, and if something goes wrong, who cares? These are just backgrounds. They're just backgrounds. And it also could be just an experiment on a smaller scale. That way it gives you an opportunity, to try something different without having to, invest in such a big piece. Actually, I did this one first. Okay, yeah, so that does work. So I'm able to wipe some of it back. And the stuff on the inside stays. Oops, I just cracked that. Okay. But I like the depth of this one. So that works as well. It goes right inside. Ooh, I like that ring. So there you go. So again, it's just a matter of just trying to see what works for your style. But I love the washy look of this. I'm going to go a little bit more on the outside here. I want that around there. Let's get some purple here. I'm finding that the fluid acrylics, it's more fluid. I have to add a lot more water with the traditions. Now let's spray that. Let's do this one first. Oh, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Wow. And then where I'm overlapping with the yellow, it's turning different little shades of green. Okay. That's pretty. Let me just get a little bit more blue in there. Okay, and then this one here, now this is the Terra Skin. So the Terra Skin, now it could be either the Terra Skin or because it's the heavy cracks, it's a little harder to manipulate on these ones. This one's a little harder to manipulate. Get that right inside. Now with this much product in here, this much paint, this really should be let to air dry to get the real heavy duty cracks. I'm going to bring that down. This is where I want a heavy color there. There we go. I love this. I think this is my favorite, this one here. I love that one the best. So let me take, now I'm going to take my hair blower with this one here. Hair blower on the cool setting. Right. Let's pick up all this stuff here. Even that's pretty. All right, so the hair dryer on the cool setting didn't do much other than move stuff around, but then that's why I was doing the hot, cold, just to see what would happen. And this one here, going to let this one dry naturally, and I'll give it about half an hour, then we'll see what it looks like. All right, so I'm gonna put some Decor Vintage Effect Wash Black on here just to give you a quick little thing about finishing the edges. This one I did with a burnt sienna, and so this you just go on like this, and basically from here, I mean, the edging is something you really do at the very end, but just to show you it finished, it kind of contains everything quite nicely. And the Vintage Effect Wash is a beautiful product to use for this stuff. It's just it's not so heavy. It's too bad Decor doesn't make stamp products like stamp pads and that, but their specialty is paint. Uh-oh, the kids are out and my window's open. Uh-oh, okay, I better hurry up. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed this and this little book of backgrounds experiment. And you know, if you don't have watercolors, it might be, you know, but you'd like to try them, you could, you know, take a look at getting some watercolor medium and see if that might be something you'd want to do, or just pick up some, you know, inexpensive watercolors at the dollar store, kids watercolors, just to try it and see if it's something you'd like to, you know, to practice with. And if you like the finish, you like what you can do with it, then you can invest into a more expensive set. But like for me, I don't use watercolors enough, so it doesn't really warrant, other than the core, which I was using for painting outside, it doesn't really warrant me to invest in a whole line of watercolors. The watercolor medium works fine just for me. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below if it's something you'd like to try, and any suggestions you have for any future projects. I read every single comment, and I love learning to find out what you want. All right, so until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.